Starting here. This is Spokane Plan Commission for March 9th, 2022. Let's start with a roll call. Stephanie, are you leading us today? Or
I am just for today.
great, welcome, thank you.
Yeah. Michael Baker.
Here.
Jesse Bank.
Here.
Todd Byrather.
Here.
Greg Francis.
Here.
Chris Neely. Ryan Patterson.
Here.
Carol Shook.
Here.
Tim Williams.
Here.
Cliff Winger.
Present.
Mary Winkus.
Here.
Lori Kinnear.
Here, and I'm also joined by Zach Sapone. So
Okay.
you get double trouble today.
Got it. Thank you. And we do have a quorum.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. I don't see Councilmember Sapone yet, though. It's okay.
He's fashionably late.
Yeah, we just saw him, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Chris arrived as well.
Excuse me? Oh, you see Chris?
I'm hiding back here somewhere.
All right, thank you. Okay, let's start with public comment period. Is anyone here from the public that would like to address the commission on an item not on the agenda? I don't see anyone. Okay, moving into the briefing session, the first item is to approve the February 23rd, 2022 meeting minutes. Can we hear a motion to approve, please?
Move to approve. Second.
Thank you, Greg. Jesse, any discussion? Scanning them now. Okay, if not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? The ayes have it. So approved. City Council report. Councilmember Kinnear, please.
Thank you. So I had a really good meeting right before this with Betsy Wilkerson, Councilmember Wilkerson, and the mayor of Vancouver, Washington, to hear about some of the homeless and housing strategies that have worked for them. It was actually heartening to hear what they're doing and how far they've come. I got to hear about their Safe Bay communities and Safe Park communities initiatives. And I think there are lessons that they've learned that we can utilize here. They're going to send us all of the information that they have so that we can make a pitch to the mayor and say, these are working in other places and we need to consider them here. Jacoby and I are still working on the riverbank restoration legislation. We're currently working with legal to draft an updated version of the ordinance that would be more specific about the public process that Parks Department would need to execute before temporarily closing off any parkland or restoration. We got a lot of pushback from folks in Peaceful Valley thinking that we're going to close off private property. And then we got some pushback from fly fisher people saying we have to fly fish. And I'm going, yes, of course you do. So that's going to be a process to get a lot of public input on that. And then I'm working on moving forward the ARPA requests for our projects of citywide significance, and it's a revamp of those. And I'll be meeting with planning staff next week to discuss next step. I think specifically Terry Stripes. That's it. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. I lost the agenda. Mary, are you? I'm new at this. Community Assembly liaison report, please.
Yep. I'm not sure that I have anything to report. I think I've reported to the community assembly, but nothing this month came back to me to take this direction. So.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. The president report. The only thing I'll just touch on high level are some of the discussions we have had the last couple of days with both the planning staff and then in our leadership meeting just now. You might have seen that the comp plan amendments went forward to the briefing session last week to council, or if you didn't know that, they did. And then including the recommendation we made in December, it doesn't really matter at this point. I'm not clear if how it was presented as a proposal. That's not my memory of what we did in December, but it doesn't really matter. We are where we are now. It's in the council's hands. So, related to that, we're discussing we just discussed a couple things of how to tweak the agenda a little bit. One, just to get aligned with our rules a little better. I was digging deep in those, and I think there's some things on the briefing session we can change around and approve agendas, things like that. But the second one that I proposed, just for transparency, was can we carve out a little bit of committee time within the Plan Commission so that we can dig deep on specific topics. So we're not there yet, but just if you have feedback on whether that's desirable to do 10-15 minutes of focused topics that we lead as a commission, meaning any commissioner can propose that, and then we put it on a schedule for us to discuss, and also bring in other experts or so forth if it's a topic we want to educate ourselves and do our own independent research. That's really the focus. This isn't a shot across the bow of any other effort, but it's when we look at our rules, the workshops are meant to be staff led to prepare us for hearings, which is different than some discussion or research on a topic that we lead and want to ask questions about. So, okay. That's it. I don't think there's anything else. Let's move into the Transportation Subcommittee report with Cliff.
Yes, we met last week, the Transportation Subcommittee, and Integrated Capital Management presented the 6-year plan. So that should come before the Plan Commission pretty soon now. Also, some of the stakeholders on the subcommittee voiced concerns about land use that the Plan Commission or the Planning Department may be doing as relates to transportation in the city. So density, things like that, they would like to have a representative from the Plan Commission or the Planning Department to clear up questions that they may have. And that was it for our meeting. Thank you.
Cliff and Mary, can you expand on that a little bit more? What the request is that, because since we already have the two of you and room for more on the subcommittee, what is the potential request?
I'm going to let Cliff explain that because I'm not sure exactly what he means.
They requested information, and I think it dealt with parking and bicycling, and also people who have some type of disability to get mobility in town. They were just worried. They heard things about land use that could affect mobility throughout the city. So I think they were just feeling there were some flags that might concern some of the stakeholders that are part of the Transportation Subcommittee.
Could we go back to them, Cliff, and get some more specifics so we could answer some questions? Because I don't know specifically what that means. There may be answers to those questions.
Yeah, you're right, Mary. Possibly Spencer could put that on our agenda for next time that we meet, and we could have a roundtable discussion on that and present a better document to either the Planning Department or the Plan Commission.
That would seem more useful to me, but then I like specifics.
Yeah, Spencer, is that something that could be put on the agenda for the next time that the Plan Commission Subcommittee, Transportation Subcommittee meets?
I'll have to talk with Colin. He was the one at that meeting, so I'll try to find out a little more from him, and we'll take a look at that.
Okay,
Thanks.
Thank you, Spencer.
Okay, thank you, Cliff. And then with that, the Secretary report, Director Gardner, please.
Yeah, I tried to start my video the first time. It didn't work. There we go. So the first big news, we have another new planner here, Tyler Kimbrell. I think Tyler's on. So if he is, I wanted him to take a minute and just introduce himself.
Thanks, Spencer, and hi, commissioners. My name's Tyler Kimbrell. I just started last Monday, or 2 Mondays ago now. I'm born and raised in Spokane. I graduated from Gonzaga University and then the planning program at Eastern. Couple of years back, I was working at the city of Spokane as a planning assistant. I took a bit of a hiatus, traveled to New Zealand to work as a parks planner. And now I'm back. So I'm happy to be here. And I look forward to working and speaking with everyone. Thanks.
And he's lost his Kiwi accent, which I noticed for the first couple of days, but it's gone. Couple of other items, as Todd mentioned, President Bayrether mentioned, the council, we were before council during their study session, going through the comprehensive plan amendments. The expectation is for that to go to resolution on March 21st before council. And so that's the schedule we're working with there. And the item that came from Plan Commission that refers to LU 1.3 and LU 1.4 in the comprehensive plan. There was discussion at council about that. Where that stands currently is there's a desire not to have those considerations bog down the other comprehensive plan amendments that are under consideration. And so that discussion is going to happen parallel to the private amendments and the other city-led amendments that have been brought before council. Council is very supportive of having that conversation and I guess kind of opening up the possibility for making some changes to the comprehensive plan there. So there's a lot of support on council for discussing that and for starting to think about it. But again, the other amendments need to continue forward as we work with council and we get a little more of a handle on how deep that goes into the comprehensive plan and what are some of the parameters around which that conversation can happen. So that's where things are currently.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay. So we'll close the briefing session. If Nate, Amanda, are you okay early? We'll move into our first workshop, which is residential development code changes. Please.
Yeah, thank you very much, President Bayrether. I'll share my screen. I'm Nathan Gwynn with the city's planning department, and I'm joined today by my colleague Amanda Beck here at the city, as well as our consultants from Makers Architecture and Urban Design. They're on the call with us. They are Bob Bankford and Ian Crozier. So you'll be hearing from the four of us today during this presentation, the next 60 minutes. Start out with a few slides on the presentation for residential code initiatives. Again, this is looking at continuing our discussion of a range of alternatives, and today's workshop will specifically look at residential development code changes for duplexes, for attached housing or townhomes, and design standards for detached, single-family, attached, and duplexes. And you'll recall that at your last workshop, we discussed and examined the accessory dwelling unit code, and you had some questions and some work to bring back, and so we've been working on some additional modeling, and we'll present that at your next workshop. So today we'll focus less on those accessory dwelling unit standards and more on the other topics. And then I will ask Amanda to cover the next few slides related to some of the guiding documents.
Yeah. similar to how we framed the discussion for the February 23rd workshop. We just kind of want to ground this in some of the guiding documents, both as far as their goals and their policies. So the comprehensive plans, goals, and policies are rooted in these vision and value statements, many of which go back prior to our current 2017 updated version. On screen are the vision and values for the housing chapter, since that is our big focus for today's workshop. These two elements of the housing chapter really articulate the community's desire for affordable housing of all types throughout the city, which you can really see echoed in those value statements. And clearly, we've been emphasizing diversity and affordability of housing types for many years now. A lot of the root and core of the vision and value statements, as I said, do go back prior to our 2017 plans, some of which I think even go back to 1996. Next slide. So the Growth Management Act's planning goal for housing provides that communities plan for and accommodate housing affordable to all economic segments, promote a variety of residential densities and housing types, and encourage preservation of existing housing stock. And we echo this in Housing Goal H1 and also Policy H1.18, which highlights promoting a range of housing types to meet the needs of all residents, both based on income, but also I would argue that we are looking at this from a life stage perspective. So you are going to need different housing options as you transition to different life stages, whether you're a young professional, an empty nester, or you're someone who has a growing family. So obviously, keeping that in mind in how we guide the actions of the city and look at housing is important. Next slide. So there are also policies from the land use chapter of the comprehensive plan that provide guidance on how we approach housing as well, that kind of look at it from a little bit of a zoomed out scale, if you will. So less about types so much as maybe the block level. At our February 23rd meeting, we highlighted policy, land use policy LU 3.6, which focuses on compact and affordable housing. And that blends with the guidance from policy LU 1.1, directing the city to look at neighborhood units as a concept to build throughout our community, really in the hopes that basic needs can be met at that level rather than say, you need to drive 20 minutes to get to the grocery store or the pharmacy or maybe something else like some sort of service such as childcare, in addition to all the other things that you do in your day or might make it harder for you to age in place in your neighborhood. Policy LU 1.3 also focuses on duplexes, attached housing, and single-family detached design standards to really kind of focus on ensuring that duplexes and attached homes, I think, maintain an appropriate character without necessarily upending single-family residential intensity. So all of these point back to the code changes that Nate and I, in conjunction with makers, are bringing before Plan Commission. Next.
Thanks, Amanda. So thinking about how those play out, those policies in the comprehensive plan play out in our residential code. Each of these residential zones, shown on the left side, the zoning districts allow many different types of housing, and so you can see the again the kind of the four topic areas for these code amendments that intersect with the different zoning districts, either modifying or in the case of duplexes, kind of highlighted in the red, adding additional options to the development code to allow for more uses, more variety, and more flexibility in development of different housing types. Most of these choices are allowed in all zones, as you can see. So that's really the main point here, is that there are a variety of different choices allowed. Single family development, for example, will continue to be allowed in all of these related zones. It's really an effort to look at expanding the variety that's available under the development code. Wanted to touch on some other existing standards besides just what types of houses are allowed, each zone controls for maximum building coverage, maximum FAR, floor area ratio, and required outdoor area. And so those are some of the examples of the bulk limitations that interact to control the form of the home on a lot, whatever that type of house ends up being, or whatever type of development that is. And then also there are a number of design standards that apply to residential land uses in residential zones. And so, as Amanda mentioned, those are grounded in the comprehensive plan. You'll be talking a lot about design guidance today, but in this workshop and the next. But the way that the design standards appear in the development code are in the form of requirements or presumptions. And the basic difference there is that a requirement is a higher threshold for a design departure that gets processed through the design review board if there's a change required to the required design standard, whereas a presumption is a somewhat lower threshold that can be waived administratively by the director. The applicant does have an option to go to the design review board if they don't like the director's determination. And I think the point here is that these design standards are meant to be applied flexibly. So they do have that departure option. They're not meant to be rigid, and there is a process for modification to these standards as they're applied. But you'll see the R for requirements and P for presumptions as we look at these design standards and changing them. So just a note about how those are administered in the code. Those design standards, how do they apply currently? They apply to attached housing, to duplexes, and lots that are less than 40 feet wide. So even detached houses, in some cases, have these design standards applied to them. And then there's also more elaborate design standards for cottage housing, for pocket residential development that address access, parking, lighting, and fencing. So some other elements, depending on the type of housing proposed. And then the design standards apply to such aspects of the development as landscaping, the front facade. So looking at what the facade, the building wall facing the street, and how it presents itself, and then things like street orientation, and then even the entrances that are oriented a certain way. So those are existing design standards. They are to be updated through this process, and there'll be much more detail forthcoming from the consultant team on those. But wanted to just make sure that we acknowledge that there are existing design standards in the code currently and how they apply. Other existing standards, so I mentioned building coverage. That's that first 3 lines there. For the residential single family zone, these requirements are all reflecting this area. It varies, building coverage varies from depending on lot size. So it can vary from 50% on smaller lots, and then it kind of decreases in size at different thresholds. And at the point of a 10,000 square foot lot, for example, it decreases to 40%. For maximum floor area ratio, that's the next section down. That's typically is 0.5 for most development, although there is a 0.65 allowed for attached housing that's located near centers. And then another dimensional requirement that I mentioned was the required outdoor area. So that currently only exists for detached and attached houses in the residential single family zones. That is currently is 250 square feet with a minimum dimension of 12 by 12 foot square. So that has to fit somewhere in that required outdoor area. And that's allowed to be inclusive of patio space, even paved sport court areas, but it has to be some kind of it can even be partially covered as long as it's unenclosed. So that's that required outdoor area requirement. And then finally, the front setback, that's typically 15 feet for development in residential single family zone, although it is based on the average of adjacent development. So it could be that it's a greater setback if the adjacent development is reflective of a greater setback up to 20 feet, or it could be in some cases even closer if there had been an area that was previously developed at closer than 15 feet. The average does work both ways. So just wanted to acknowledge kind of what these existing development standards are for the residential single family zone before turning it over to Bob and Ian. And so if they're ready, I'd like to welcome our consultant team, Bob and Ian. I see they're waiting in the wings here in a room. So welcome, Bob and Ian.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. I'm used to actually presenting from my house, so it's a new thing here being together back in the office here, at least at our place. So we presented a lot of this information to you back on January 26th, I believe. There's some slides that are the same, but we've developed the code language since then. So we'll be talking about some of the details, and certain things have dropped off as well. So with that, Ian's gonna talk about the objectives and a little bit of the overview, and we're gonna tag team on this presentation. So take it away.
Great. Thanks. Yeah, I get the project goals that are behind the code work as we're developing the code, address housing affordability issues, and in particular the housing capacity, address housing demand, avoid unreasonable impacts to neighbors while allowing better use of existing residential lots, and that the new homes that are added to meet that demand are contributing positively to the residential areas where they're being added. Next slide. Please. Thank you. And when you as you know, with development code, often it's organized and written to prevent certain things that we don't want to happen. In particular, the things that are guiding a lot of our work here is preventing aggressive development practices, unreasonable impacts to neighbors, and problematic building design. That again is building design that's not contributing to the places where it's being built. Next one. We want to highlight that all of these proposals ideally work together as a suite. Today we're talking about the design aspects for the RSF zone, about the duplex proposals and the attached housing or townhouse proposals. We've already talked about the ADU and the lot transitions, and just because we're not talking about them today doesn't mean that they're not part of this coordinated suite of proposals.
Next slide. So I'll talk about the 4 items that apply to all types of housing in the RSF zones. Let's just go to the next slide. So the first one being involving minimum usable open space. And so I'm kind of talking about the, right now in the code, it's referred to required outdoor area that Nate just referred to. And if you might remember me last time talking about this example in Lacey, you're kind of about 20 years ago, you started to see some master plan developments where rather than the old days, you know, when you had longer lots and you had a detached garage off the alley, and you had your rear yard was in between the garage and the house, you're kind of squishing them together because a lot of people like to have their garage attached to the house. So you've had subdivisions like this start to pop up where basically there's no yard. So if you look at the bottom left at the aerial, the homes are close together, and then you just see a driveway in the back and a minimal front setback, and on the right, basically a driveway and these wood chip strips kind of serve as their backyard. And there was a big backlash against that. Let's go to the next slide. So typically this issue only comes into play for alley loaded lots because your rear yard setbacks, if it's a front loaded lot, guarantees you're going to have that usable open space, but you need to be a little more creative with your small lots at getting some usable open space. So I wanted to point out, last time we did some modeling and staff picked out a number of lots for us to model. These lots were directly behind the small lot that we looked at. And I noticed on Google Earth, you see the upper left was the old home. But then when you went to a different street view, it switches to the bottom right. And so you see that 3 new homes have been built where 1 home was. And even though these lots are more than 100 feet wide, they still smashed the garage up into the house. And you could see the usable open space for that unit is that tiny little patio. And that's it. So, you know, we had a good internal discussion with staff about, you know, whether this was really a problem. And I pointed out this example, and I think now if we're going to be getting more smaller lots, you're going to start seeing more of this. So I think at least for the next, let's go on to the next slide. But so the proposal that we're looking at that would prevent that and require some adjustments would be to require for single family detached, at least 10% of the lot be usable open space, but with the minimum dimension of 15 feet. So this is an example lot that's 4,800 square feet. And you can see there, the darker green in this case is the minimum at that 10%, and you easily meet it. And here you're kind of maxing out what you can do with the floor area ratio on the lot as well. So with a lot of your old lots that are alley loaded, it should be easy to meet unless for some reason you want to attach the house to the garage. Then you got to kind of work around it. Duplexes right now don't have any standard, but for attached houses, you have, which Nate mentioned, you have 250 square feet minimum and 12-foot minimum dimensions. And so, you know, 15 is a better dimension, I think, but for attached housing, you need, it's probably good to have a little more flexibility. And we thought, let's probably just stick with that standard for all attached housing. And then we thought for duplexes, let's just stick with that, those same numbers as well. The other option was going with the same for single family, but given for small lots, again, we erred on the side of flexibility. The other part that we'd like to offer is say, you can do your usable open space in the front yard, but to make sure it's usable, it's better to have a low wall that helps differentiate the public streetscape from the semi-private and make a more usable space rather than the grass strip. Next slide. So again, why? I think I've kind of explained that, that there's been a lot of development west of the mountains that's been doing this thing. We're mashing up the house with the garage on the small alley loaded lots. And I think more of that's going to happen if you don't get out in front of it. The 10% rule makes sure that the open space is proportional to your lot. And then the 15-foot minimum is really based on about 20 years worth of analysis in collaboration with staff and developers. Again, in the lower right picture was one of the big developers in Lacey and looking at one of his properties and that being a 15-foot wide example. And that example, and a lot of the good ones for those are like the zero lot style, where instead of having a fence down the middle, you have more of a blank wall or glazed windows on one side so you can consolidate your side yard like that. Let's go to the next slide. I think I have some examples here. So again, this is another subdivision which didn't do a good job of this, and you can see the street view from the alley. That's what you get if you may not have some standards and people start doing this. And then go to your next slide. In our next slide, this is at Issaquah Highlands, and I actually drove down this alley on Monday as part of one of my projects. And noticing here how they really, you can see in the aerial that they moved the garage to a side, and they also did the zero lot line approach. So they have a decent yard. You can kind of, in the Google Street View there, you can look over the fence and see it's a pretty good sized space that would easily meet the standards we've proposed. Next slide. And then the other part, front yard open space. Down in Kendall Yards, I noticed some of the townhomes. I can't remember what street that's on, but there's an example of providing your little fence and having nice, usable open space for attached single family. And then I grew up in Orange County, California, and went to the beach a lot. And down there, they built lot to edge to lot edge pretty much, but their front courtyards are where they have their open space, and it makes for a really cool streetscape. And then the upper left, I was in Georgetown, Texas last year and noticed those townhomes that were kind of similar. Next slide. So moving on to the other ones, we've had I know we talked about building coverage, and we sort of looked at maybe getting rid of building coverage and doing impervious area, but after doing some analysis and discussion with staff, we kind of went back to maybe we just need to make some strategic adjustments to building coverage. And so that's where we've ended up with the code. And so what we've done is to add a little flexibility for those smaller lots, we've adjusted it from 45% up to about 48 for lots that are about 5,000. And for ADUs, at least for accessory buildings that include ADUs, we bumped that up to 20% to allow more flexibility there. And I guess we had other discussions later about maybe even expanding that, but we'll save that for another meeting. And let's just keep going on the next slide. The other big thing is simply requiring alley access where they are available, and rather than having a lot of driveways fronting the street. And so, but we have had some discussion, and this is a challenge in a lot of cities of what do you say when you have an unimproved alley, or how do you define unimproved? We just dealt with this in Port Angeles. So there's some details to be worked out there with utilities. Let's go to the next slide, though. I'll show you an example. Again, those similar example next on the sites next to our modeled area. You notice the 4 town small single family. They've got an alley back there that's doesn't look all that improved, but then you look at the lower right image, those new homes make use of the alley. But here you've got all these separate driveways there, and you can't even use the on-street parking now. So that's a good reason to look at it, and particularly if you have one of these developments along the corner of a block, you should be able to get the developers to do the alley access there and at least make some minimal improvements. Next slide. The next part is kind of a suite of creating or crafting updated minimum design standards that would apply to single family, attached and detached, as well as ADUs and duplexes, and not just single family lots less than 40 feet. And so we were looking at some recent examples and older examples, and these are just some examples here showing various levels of detail to no details and improvements, and trying to figure out, we wanted to keep something relatively simple, not set the bar too high, but not set it too low. The one on the upper right seemed kind of about in the sweet spot of, you wouldn't want to go less than that, but maybe you don't want to require too much more in terms of articulation and detailing. Next slide. So the purpose is really focus on mostly what you see from the street, for a better streetscape, also help it to fit into the neighborhood better. So the elements are covered entry, facade modulation, window coverage, garage limitation, and front yard landscaping. And I'll go through slides on these. So let's go to the next slide. This is just showing, you know, we looked at kind of going, for example, if you fly over the city on Google Earth north of downtown, you can kind of see how development progressed by decades there north of the river. And so just kind of looked at a lot of the patterns that you had regarding our facade modulation, entries, roof orientation, things like that. Next slide. So the covered entry is just the very basic livability kind of issue, especially when you get smaller lots. So what came out of our discussion was requiring at least 50 square foot covered entry or porch feature with minimum dimensions of 5 feet. And one of the new other related proposals is now to allow a 6-foot projection of the front yard setback, which should promote more of these features and not penalize you by using your valuable setback envelope. Next slide. The other big part is facade modulation. And so what we came up with is facades greater than 25 feet wide will need to do, you know, at least one measure to break down the scale and integrate with the neighborhood. Next slide. So what we came up with actually was 2 tiers, and it was based on how wide your facade is. And this was, again, I kind of took a couple hours looking at a lot of the examples, thinking about it, and how we could codify this. And this is kind of what I came up with. So if your facade is 25 to 40 feet wide, you would need 1 feature. So for example, the upper left model that we did, I think that's about 39 feet wide. So if your facade's bigger, you would need 2 features. And if you have a facade with more than 1 entry, so like a duplex or 2 attached, then you need an additional feature. So the options for these features are projected covered entry. So the upper left version there has 1 feature, and that would meet the requirement for 25 to 40 with 1 feature. The other ones are building wall modulation and roof line modulation. So the bottom image actually shows all 3 of those then. Plus it's got, because it's got separate covered entries for each unit there, it actually has 4 features. So it's got more than required. But just to give you an idea how we came up with it and what we think is kind of a good place to set the bar that will help them be integrated and meet the objectives. Next slide. The other one was window coverage. I mean, the big thing is to try to prevent things like this. And fortunately, we've got other standards also helping us from preventing the garage-scape look like the big duplex units down the bottom, especially the lower left from Bozeman. Next slide. So what we came up with is on your facade to provide at least 15% of the facades to have window coverage, not including garage doors. And I believe the 15% was also consistent with what's used in multifamily. Nate or Amanda, you could check me if I'm wrong on that. But we had kind of talked about where to set the bar on that, and it was decided to kind of go with that consistent number. And we've used that number before in other single family areas. Next slide. And the other important one is integrating some details. So again, these are images showing from 0 details to to several on the lower right. And again, trying to figure out where the right place is to set the bar. Next slide. And here's, yeah, just went right into the code language here because it's pretty simple. So to integrate at least 2 of the following details, and it's a requirement, and we wanted to make sure this was easy for staff to administer. So molding framing details around the windows, building materials, including stone, brick, natural materials, coordinated with facade modulation. That's an important part of it. Decorative porch or entry features, including decorative columns or railings, decorative door design, including transom windows, side lights, or other distinctive features, bay windows or balconies, and then the last one being window design, at least 4-inch window trim or 2-inch recess. And note that we were going to make V1 a base requirement, but then after working with staff, we thought it would be good to mix in this list required to and allow that to be one of the features. I thought that would be some useful information for how we came up with this. You know, sometimes we say other features that aren't on the list, but we, staff wanted to create kind of a clear set toolbox of options that, again, are easy to interpret and administer. Next slide. I think just a couple more on the R set here. So front yard landscaping design, at least have some minimal provisions to make sure we get something, including a minimum number of shrubs, 3-gallon shrub every 3 lineal feet. You'll see the upper left and the right image are examples of that. Also, make sure at least 60% of the front yard area be landscaped, and then integrate at least 2 items from the list there, including an integrated patio with perimeter landscape and low wall, or a terraced front yard, a low fence, or maybe integrating a trellis or vine to integrate those features. And then I think the other thing Nate had me mention was that there's a new is it Spokanescapes provision that required 50% of the landscaped, 50% of the front yard maybe to be actual landscaped area. So you can't just put garden rocks and that be your landscaped area. You actually have to have landscape plant material to meet that standard. Next slide. Okay, so Ian will take over, give me a break and talk about people.
Okay. Great. On the duplexes, you may notice the numbering here is a little funny. There's duplex policy number 2 or duplex proposal number 2 relates to the comprehensive plan policies. So we understand there's a separate timetable for those. Today we'll just talk about duplex proposal number 1 and number 3. We can go to the next slide. First one, it has to do with the affordability goal and the fact that smaller housing units tend to be more affordable than large ones, and so this would allow duplex units with each unit under 1,200 square feet to count as half of a unit in terms of density calculations. So essentially, you could get a duplex with 2 small units in the RSF zone on a lot that wouldn't normally allow it. So that would be lots between about 4,700 or 4,300 square feet and 8,700 square feet, to be precise. I think we can go to the next slide. Here we've got the code language, and there's the numbers right there. Anything else you want to say about that?
I think you can just go to the next.
All right, we'll keep going. And then the other duplex proposal has to do with de-emphasizing garages. I remember when the beginning of this project, we saw some examples of some really gnarly duplexes with giant garages that project in front of the house. This proposal would prohibit that, prohibiting garages that project closer to the street than the front of the house or front porch covered entry projection with a 5-foot setback for the garage.
Yeah, I'll add to that in that, you know, in some cities you see require the 5-foot setback behind the front face, but oftentimes that can be difficult to fit into the floor plans, and with other communities we've come up with the rule of 5 feet behind the front face of the porch. The porch kind of does the job of making sure that that's kind of the thing that you see, and it provides a little more flexibility for your floor plans.
Great, thanks, Bob.
Next slide.
Next slide, please. And then we have attached housing and or townhouses, if you'd like to call it that. We've got 4 proposals we'll be talking about. The first one up, next slide, please, is very similar to what we just talked about for or wait, no, this is not the same. Okay, this is allowing more than 2 attached units in the RSF and RSFC zones when I believe you have a cluster subdivision situation. As long as you meet the overall density limits, you could put 3 houses or more together. So that would be a change that would lower construction costs for those units. And then related to what we just talked about, thank you, for duplexes, you also, if you had small townhouse units that were 1,200 square feet or less, though 2 of those could count for half a dwelling unit each.
2 count as 1, yeah.
2 count as 1 for the density calculations. That's next slide, please. Okay, all right, here's the code language for that. Next one. Townhouse attached housing proposal number 3 has to do with driveways. And as Bob noted earlier, with the skinny lot single family houses, when you have a lot of driveways one after the other, it really impacts the on-street parking. It makes it impossible to have street trees. It makes it more difficult for people who are navigating the sidewalk in wheelchairs. So the proposal here would be to prohibit front-loaded units for if you have 3 or more attached houses. That could either be an alley accessed garage or a shared driveway that could come around the back, like in the diagram shown. Next slide. And here I'll hand it back over to Bob.
Okay, the other thing is that that these would be subject to the same standards that I talked about that apply to duplexes, single family attached and detached. But the other thing that I thought would be good to add was this minimum unit separation when you're across from an internal drive or court. And so this is sort of a lesson from Seattle. You know, the picture of the lower left, there's been a lot of criticism, discussion about the Seattle 6-pack. And you've got these narrow drives, you can see on the right, leading from the street to these overhanging canyon looks where units have little to no solar access and privacy right across from each other. So go to the next slide. We came up with 30 feet because 30 allows for something more like this. And this is again when it wouldn't apply to the sides, but you know, one of the faces where you have your windows, just to give a little bit more light and air, and also to provide some trees and landscaping in that space. In addition to, so really this kind of shows why 30 feet, and that's pretty much from the balcony to the balcony in this case, 30 feet of just allowing for a little more of a livability type thing. And I think in a lot of these R zones, I think that's going to be important if you integrate these types of attached housing that don't all front on the street. Next slide. And this is again simply the language for that. And oh yeah, lastly, I already mentioned this, but those design standards I talked about earlier regarding modulation, entries, windows, and details and landscaping would apply to these as well. So I think that wraps up our slides for this. Keep going.
Yeah, thanks, Bob and Ian. So this is the final slide today. Got the project webpage, shapingspokanehousing.com there, as well as our project email for continuing to accept written comment at the project email development code at spokanecity.org. And we'll turn it over now to the Plan Commission for discussion and any questions for our panel today.
Well, thank you, Nate, Amanda, everyone. Thank you for, by the way, thank you for just taking time today with us. We have a half hour, I think, for the schedule right now. Anyone of the commissioners like to start? There's a lot of information, but.
I have a question.
Okay.
This is Councilmember Kinnear.
Please.
And I want to thank Bob and Ian for not just presenting, but being creative about looking at solutions for our community, because I think it's really important that we don't do cookie cutter. So I really appreciate you thinking outside the box, no pun intended. And I wanted to mention a couple of things. The first one was the alley piece, because in the past, the city has funded projects to not pave alleys, but put down gravel, because we use alleys for garbage collection. And the trucks are heavy and they really tear up the alleys. If we don't have nice smooth surface, our drivers really take a beating. So we have these alleys with these enormous moon craters. And so the city went through and not paved them, but put down gravel so that it would minimize the damage to the trucks and to the drivers. So I would like to see some sort of regulation where if you're going to use alleys, that the developer be required to actually pave that portion of the alleys that they use. That's the first thing. The second thing is the city passed an ordinance that would require, it was a goal actually, to have 40% tree canopy coverage by 2030. And we're a long ways from our goal. So I would like to make sure that we're not just allowing room for class 1 trees, which are the smallest, but that we're going to class 2 and 3 trees, which are larger, so that we really get that canopy coverage and able to mitigate the heat island effect for residents and keep the costs of cooling down for residents, especially in lower income neighborhoods. So I think the tree piece is critical. And then the third thing is, you mentioned Spokanescape, and that is absolutely essential that we stop the idea that we have to plant lawns everywhere as landscaping, because as you indicated, there are more creative things that we can do to landscaping, not just lawn and boxwood hedges. So, but again, thanks so much for this, because it was really, it felt good. So a lot of my tension and angst came down a couple levels. So thank you.
I can barely see people, so I think Jesse, I think that it would be helpful if you hit raise your hand, because I think you pop up then in view. I guess we're not sharing slides, right? Maybe it's just my
Yeah,
lab.
I've taken the slides down, but I can pull it up if needed.
Okay. Got it. I can see everyone now. Thank you. Jesse.
Thank you. I'll be quick because I see another couple members have their hands up. Just wanted to go back to the conversation about design standards with the consultants, if you would. So I'm in general a big proponent of design standards, but hearing some practical issues that we've dealt with in this city before, and just wanting to get your guys' take on those are added cost issues, and are we creating a chilling effect on house construction through having to meet certain detail requirements? And B, sort of a peripheral question is, who is reviewing this, and do we have the staff, just the sheer manpower, people power, whatever you want to say, to handle some of these issues?
You want me to take that, Nate, or I could take it and you could follow up, or?
Yeah, please. Why don't you go ahead and start? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jesse. As I noted, we really talked about trying to set the bar at a right place that's appropriate for Spokane. So it's not too strict, but strict enough so that the minimum is going to be good enough. And that's just absolutely critical, especially for those toolbox items. And based on my experience here and knowing Spokane, I think we've set them at the right place. And I mean, maybe different folks might say we want to go higher, and others might say we want to go lower. But I definitely wouldn't go any lower, at least particularly in the toolbox list of options. I think we've allowed enough flexibility that these things really aren't going to be costly, and these just like the doing the trim on the windows, for instance, and that just applies to the facade. Largely, again, we're just focused on the facade and what you see from the street. And so these should be things that developers are doing anyways to fit into the neighborhood and get good rents. And so that's kind of my take on it.
President, do you want me to comment on the question about staffing?
Sure, please.
Just quickly, we've been working pretty closely with current planning as we've been developing these. And so I think they're rightly concerned about that issue, wanting to make sure they have the resources to review this. I think they're generally supportive of what we've got here. And their comments have prompted some changes to make sure that they feel comfortable administering this. So I think at this point, we're in a good place there. We've been working pretty closely with them.
Great. Well, thank you both. I think those are the bulk of my questions for right now.
Okay, thank you. Let's go Chris Ryan, then Carol, please.
Thank you. Forgive a rookie question. Do we have a regulation regarding the issue that Councilwoman brought up about the tree canopy? For new development or through these proposed changes, are we recommending or underlining any requirements for tree canopy?
Thanks, Commissioner Neely. We've had some, I think there were, and maybe Councilmember Kinnear can elaborate, but there were some changes at the time that the city adopted those goals. And so those do impact development. I think we're looking at specifically the street tree environment, the changes that are proposed would make, in some cases, would make that coordination quite a bit easier with relationship to the curb cuts and ensuring that there's a little bit more room for street trees.
I was talking about, we do have regulations around street trees. We opened up the ordinance and made that change. But when you have such limited amount of street to put a street tree in, because there are other utilities that have to go in, I want to make sure that we have room on the actual lot itself. If we don't accommodate a street tree, that there's room on the lot itself to accommodate a class 2 or 3 street tree.
How do we? I also sit on the Urban Forestry Committee. So this is a very important topic to me. How do we go about making that happen? The idea that, okay, if we can't do the street tree, we can at least do some sort of tree mandate within the landscape, because that's essentially what you just said, right?
Yes, and
Yeah.
we could codify that, certainly. We could open up the ordinance again and make sure that that's going to happen.
Can I get a sense of the other folks as to what their thinking is on this? This is becoming the whole tree canopy issue and cooling of cityscapes is becoming an incredibly vital issue. So this is something I think we really got to take a serious look at.
Yeah, I think, well, in our discussions anyway, I could speak on behalf of staff that I think that the private property side of it for this type of smaller scale development, single family, 2-family development is really is another policy discussion that hasn't happened. But I will say that we're consistently talking about conflicts with utilities, street trees, and driveways, and thinking about maintaining the current limitation on curb cuts that we have, and looking at, in some cases, new ones. So requiring consolidated access for 3 attached units, 3 more attached units, for example, requiring for that driveways be limited to 1 curb cut, even on adjacent lots, things like that. So I think there's part of that is part of this proposal, and then there are maybe other other discussions, as Councilmember Kinnear referred to, where we may need to go back and look at those other regulations.
Yeah, that would I'd love to make sure we don't lose that one in the shuffle. A couple other quick points real quick. On the subject of alleys, I grew up in a street environment where we had an alley in the backyard, excuse me. Very important. We talked a little bit about this a couple of weeks ago when it comes to parking. If you've got a garage in the back and an alley adjacent, then you're saving room in the front for fire engines and so forth to gain access to the street. Also, they get better fire access to the back end of the house and the garage if there's an alley, as opposed to 2 fences sort of right up next to each other. So I love the idea of paved alleys, and I think that's all I got for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Ryan, please.
I took notes as I read through the code adjustments, so I'm going to kind of just blow through the notes that I made. The first one, I appreciate that it was addressed that the minimum outdoor space might also be in the front of the house, but I don't really understand why there has to be a fence or a wall around it. It just seems a little bit unnecessary. One thing I noticed in the design standards, section 17C 110.305, there is it talks about the purpose, and one of those things specifically called out incorporating architectural details that characterize single-family neighborhoods, and that felt a little bit elevating single-family as necessarily better than duplexes. And I was wondering if the purpose of that was actually to say, existing neighborhoods or historic neighborhoods, and we maybe don't need to specifically say single-family. Further in the design standards, the 50 square feet minimum covered entry feels like a lot. I think it is worth a discussion. I mean, my parents' house has a 3 foot by 3 foot entry, which is decidedly small, but like 50 is like a 10 by 5, or I mean, that's a really big porch. And then when it goes into the facade modulation options, it only allows for projecting covered entryways and doesn't allow for recessed covered entryways. And I don't see, why. I mean, it seems like we're excluding a lot of potential design. I have, again, with the duplexes, and this I know was already existing, so this is not new. Duplexes on a corner lot, that the entrances have to be on opposite corners. And again, it really is saying, a single family house is better, and 2 doors on the front of a building is is worse. And so we want it to look like a one door, one family at all costs. It just seems unnecessary. And then the design details toolbox, I totally support the idea that we want our buildings to be interesting, but only allowing for 6 potential details that are very specific seems again to be limiting design that maybe just isn't even being considered. I mean, if this was 1920 and somebody came up with a really modern, you know, streamlined design, it could be possible that it wouldn't be allowed because it didn't fit the standards of what is considered, you know, attractive design at the time. And are we excluding architecture and design that might be good for our city just because it doesn't fit into one, you know, these 6 categories? And my last ones were the front yard design. And I actually really appreciate that these design standards are being standardized across all of the housing types and not being separated by attached or detached. The call out for the Spokane space does specify that it be designed by a certified professional. And I know most of these design standards are with a new developer in mind, but we also have people who might be doing infill, that might be doing 1 or 2 units. They might be small homeowners as opposed to larger developers. And it seemed unnecessarily stringent, where instead there could be a standard for Spokane Statescape for someone to follow. They don't have to hire someone to design it. And again, my last one is that every house, attached house or duplex shall integrate at least 2 items. And there's only 4 options: a trellis, a fence with shrubs, a terraced front yard, or a patio. And I mean, we can have interesting landscaping and not be locked into only 2 of 4 options that's on the list. That's all.
Thank you, Ryan. Carol. By the way, feel free to anyone jump in and comment on these. There were questions in there too, so I don't mean to rush through, but I want to give the commissioners a chance to talk. Carol,
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate the presentation today. It gives us more things to think about. I wonder, since we're looking at housing, not only for young professionals, but for those of lower and moderate income households and people of color, can you tell me approximately what the price range would be for these new homes and what the just approximate monthly mortgage would be, since we're thinking of home ownership rather than rentals?
Yeah, thanks. I can try to take a stab at that. I think the proposal is, following the guidance from the comprehensive plan and the housing action plan, we're looking at making more smaller housing options available, and those will have a lower price point than if the housing was developed further away from services or at larger floor areas. So it is related to sort of the housing supply overall, and that supply side, thinking about the housing that does get built, if we allow for more opportunity for smaller housing options, accessory dwelling units, these duplexes that might be limited to 1,200 square feet and so forth, that those are going to have a relatively smaller, smaller cost to maintain, smaller cost to and to heat and cool, and over their life cycle, they're going to have less roof area, for example, less floor area to maintain, and they will have comparatively smaller mortgages to finance.
And so I know it depends on what the down payment will be, but are we looking at developing homes that people can get into for less than $1,500 a month? mortgage, or are we looking at 800? Are we looking at 2,500? Or I'm just curious, because that was one of the reasons we were looking at. We definitely need new housing in our area, but we're also looking at affordability across all of the people here in the air community.
Yeah, there's no
Well-
affordability. Sorry, there's
No,
no
go ahead, Nick.
affordability requirement in this code. However, this would work with other strategies, and with even with affordable or low income housing developers would be able to use these options. And so we've heard the support from the community, the nonprofit housing development community that would be able to make some of these options available to their customers as well. Any other
Carol,
comments?
I'm gonna build off your comment because I think you're dead on. So I'm a broken record. We can't make these decisions without having a development feasibility study that goes along with it. We have to be, I want open space, but it adds cost. So we have to be able to quantify what that means. So it sounds nice to say 250 square feet, but you're reinforcing the exact thing we're challenged with single family zoning. This is kind of the definition of the exclusionary piece, that you're forcing someone to own more land and so forth and so forth. And, the second part is we have, so, okay, I'm going to give an example. I've said this before with the State Building Code Council. We can't do rulemaking without at least checking the box that it may or may not increase cost to construction. That's mandated by state RCW, right? So we have to do that. And if so, we have to have at least a preliminary analysis of what that impact could be. So back to your point, Carol, it's dead on in the sense that it's not the first cost. I know a lot of people believe that's everything, but it's the cost to the occupant. And so when we make decisions about landscaping or roof pitch and all these things, like those architectural, that's one piece. But the second piece is what does that mean when we have detached structures for energy efficiency? And that's more cost to the end user. All this stuff ties together, obviously, right? But and when we talk about kind of concepts of new urbanist concepts of modulation and trim and things like that, first of all, I architecturally don't agree with that. We need if we're going to put those prescriptive things in the development code, we need the very easy departure if you're a licensed architect or a licensed engineer or something, because I absolutely agree. I think was the point you're making, Ryan, is that this is a challenge to me as a designer, for architectural reasons, but also when we get into we're roof pitches and porches and things like that, those are all probably really good things, but you're eliminating the move to offsite manufacturing, things that are going to be about scale and cost and so forth. And I say that in full transparency, that's what I do, but that's where I'm challenged by it. It's this is asking questions about what is the truth in architecture? This is the architecture 101, why is history right? Rather than what I'm going to propose as a designer to move us into something, to a preferred state of what it is. So there's a lot there, but anyway, I don't mean to sound too critical, yet I have a lot of concerns about consistency in our comp plan with other climate, cost, so forth, by adding these. So I'm going to step down. I think, Tim, you were next, and then Mary, please.
Thank you, Todd. It was a very interesting presentation, and it was helpful to be going through some of these concepts for the second time. But I had a couple of things I wanted to ask the makers folks in particular. We're part of a larger community here in that we have the city of Spokane Valley, Liberty Lake, and Post Falls. So I was wondering, how do these design standards that we're looking at compare generally to our neighboring communities? Are they much more freeform, or do they have something similar in place in the communities next to us?
I'm not sure about Spokane Valley, but did some consulting for Post Falls about 6 or 7 years ago. And they had some pretty intense, like a form-based code that they adopted years ago. But I think that they're sort of gotten away from that. They realized that it wasn't working so well. And I believe they have some standards for single family, but they allow for a lot of garage-shaped designs that these standards would not allow. So they're still relatively more permissive than what's being proposed here.
The other thing I wanted to ask is more of a philosophical question, a little bit, some of the things that Ryan mentioned and Todd mentioned about thinking about cost and flexibility. You know, if you look at Richland after World War II, they built these houses like A house, F house, G house. You know, they had letters and there were certain designs and they just stamped them out. And it was cheap to build and they got a lot of housing built. And then over time, people adapted those houses quite a bit and modified them and landscaped them. So as you go through the neighborhood, it's no longer quite as obvious as it used to be what those designs were. And so there's a part of me that wonders if we were to not have some of those design standards, the kind of the pick list of 6 items, maybe with the exception of driveways, I think that one makes a lot of sense. But if we didn't have those, would we really end up with that much quote unquote bad architecture, or might we just end up with simpler designs that are going to get modified over time by homeowners anyway? So just a philosophical question, if you will.
That's the $1 million question, and we've had lots of discussions. You know, you'd like to think that most of it's going to be just fine, but in a lot of these communities, you know, if you get some bad designs from someone that just wants to come in and get out quickly and make their money, and they're on some highly visible areas or right across the street from your house, I've seen a lot of bad designs that just do the minimum. And the trick about Spokane is you don't have a lot of greenfield left. You're working in neighborhood contexts. So if you don't have some standards, you know, you run the risk of getting some development that's completely contrary to the character. So that's what's kind of happened in Seattle when Seattle allowed for these townhouse designs. I don't think they looked at the unintended consequences they added density, but didn't really address how they would work and how they would look. And what if you did the lowest common denominator? So I think, you know, we need to look at things that way as to what's the worst they can do and where's the market going.
And in interest of housing affordability, those bad examples get used to oppose all new housing and expansion of allowed densities in other areas. So,
that's a good point.
So by holding your standards a little higher, and you can hope to diffuse some of the backlash is part of the philosophy behind this.
That's a good point.
Commissioner Williams, we also hope that the new construction tour that Jackie should have sent to all of you kind of gives some real world information for our jurisdiction about what you can see built currently, which is under current standards or even previous standards, and what that looks like. And then kind of how we're trying to elevate without going overboard with what we're proposing.
I'm going to ask, just take a pause for a second here. Spencer, Dean, you know, we have I can tell the commission has a lot of questions and comments while we have the consultants here. How do we want to address the schedule if we're already at 3:30 or coming close?
Well,
I suppose I can speak for this. You're actually looking at my mess here, but sorry. You know, I believe, and again, this is a judgment call for the Planning Commission, but the things that we're going to be presenting, or that I'm going to be presenting, actually don't create substantive changes in the design review process. What they do is they add clarity and transparency. So these are not as significant. I think they are not a heavy lift like what you're seeing in the housing, because in the housing you're talking about new rulemaking, and I think that deserves some time. We are, of course, working with on a fairly tight time frame. We've been working on this for about 2 years, so I would very much like, I get a little, my ears prick up every time everybody says, well, you can get flexibility on design standards through design departures. Design departures are the thing that design review does. That's what the design review board does. So that's how the city administers that flexibility. And the things that I'm talking about, or that you'll be saying, are, provide an armature for those discussions. So these are sort of connected but interrelated. The design review board does not, as a type, review housing. We have reviewed housing projects, but because they are of a size or in a location that would normally trigger design review. So I believe I could probably power through my presentation in probably about 15 minutes. And I don't suspect that there are going to be very many questions. I suspect, but I'll leave it to you.
Just to add my 2 cents here, I think what Dean is going to present on is important in terms of timeline, but as he noted, is not a substantive change to the process of design review. I think it would be good if we can give you the opportunity to hear that, just to make sure we keep going with the timeline there, and then whatever leftover time remains, assuming there's not a lot of discussion around what Dean presents, could be taken up with the continuation of this discussion. But of course, President, this is...
No, that's what I'm looking for, because workshops is definitely staff time. So however you'd like to manage this, I think the commission would like to keep discussing probably. But is everyone okay with that? Should we, Dean, should we take a break and present, or should we push back your presentation 15, 30 minutes?
I'm fine pushing it back 15 minutes. That I think we could probably power through it fairly quickly and still end on time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll keep talking for another 15 minutes here and then move into your presentation? Okay.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, I lost track here. So I think Mary, you had your...
Yeah, I just had a couple observations when we were talking, and then of course my computer died, so it took me a while to get back in. So I may have missed some things I might have had questions on, but anyway, it's the alley issue, and I understand getting garages so they're not forward facing and off, and the look of the place is not this protruded garage. But I also live, I don't use it, but I have an alley right next to me. I've actually had to fill the alley with extra gravel when nobody else did it. It goes downhill. It's narrow. The garbage trucks can't get through. It's not paved. It's been, some things have been done to help clean it up. And when it snows, and that seems to not get discussed here, it's not something that the city plows. So people are stuck if there's a big snow. And none of that seems to be discussed. It's like we live in California and we don't. So I would like to see more look at some of the issues around having alleys, because they're not all flat and they're not all paved. And that's a problem. So the other issue that I keep coming across, and I know, Todd, you said at some point we would discuss it, and maybe that should be one of our first, when we have 10 or 15 minutes, is the issue of affordability. And I guess Carol was kind of talking towards that. But if there's a definition of affordability, I don't know what it is. And it gets, as prices go up, that becomes less and less so. And you can't build, if you can't make a profit, you're not going to build. But I think affordability is getting to be ever more out of sight. So I think we should discuss it. There should be some sort of definition, you know, and we don't seem to have one. And I keep asking for one. So I'll let it go there.
Thank you, Mary. Maybe Ryan then Jesse. I'm not quite sure.
A couple of things regarding the street canopy style trees. I do agree that they are an important part of our city. They do seem to fall more in, especially since a lot of what we're discussing now is for new development only and would not be affecting existing homes. So the tree discussion, I think, falls more in the encouragement and recommend and maybe incentivize to homeowners rather than requiring as part of the building standards. The affordability thing, totally get it. Complicated. There's no one answer. I know for some people, just encouraging more housing creates affordability because it could, even if the new housing, I've got new $300,000+ condos several blocks away from me, but that potentially opens up other existing homes for people who can't afford a $300,000 condo. So even though this new development might not be quote unquote affordable, it might still be improving affordable housing within the city through its effect. And some of the things like relaxing the duplex option in single family neighborhoods can make a significant infill change to increasing the density in some of our neighborhoods, and adding in that 1,200 square foot as one unit change, which I think could really encourage some additional development in existing neighborhoods where that lot might not have been as viable before, but then being able to have it as a 2-unit structure would make that development viable. And back to some of these design standards, again, like who are we to decide what good versus bad design is? I think that is a very arbitrary thing. I live in a house with all of the details with the front porch in the old house, but just because something doesn't have window casings, I mean, maybe it's stucco, maybe it's Spanish style. I mean, I can't say it's good or bad design, even if it doesn't fit my personal standards. So I think that's a slippery slope we might be getting ourselves into. And a lot of these things are under that R required, which means they're not even up for discussion through a design review process. That's it.
Thank you, Ryan. Jesse, are you next?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to register complete and total agreement with every word that just came out of Ryan's mouth. Bravo, that was all absolutely spot on. Just wanted to add in another little pitch with respect to flexibility or an out on the design standards or an alternative path. The jurisdiction that I lived in prior to moving to Spokane had a fairly rigorous form-based code with lots of sort of must-have elements and optional elements. And what occurred over time was a sort of path of least resistance through a lot of those design guidelines. And we ended up with sort of the opposite of what we wanted. We ended up with the result of what the regulations were sort of getting at, but they didn't blend into their existing context very well. And it was just a sea of repetition. Everywhere it was the same house, the same house, the same house, the same house, because somebody found a quick and easy way through it. And so, I just want to encourage, if we do go forward with this idea of design regulations and musts, that there be a relatively easy and very well enumerated path to go around that, because I think the uniformity that can come from well-intentioned design regulations is potentially also something we don't want.
Thank you, Jesse. Carol, I think you're probably next.
I think I asked Mike.
Oh,
Mike.
okay. I just saw your hand. Maybe you just forgot to put it down.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I will
No
put it
worries.
down. Thank you.
No worries. Chris, did you?
Yeah. The issues that were brought up by a couple of our fellows on the council about on the commission rather about this issue of affordable. I absolutely want to lend my voice in agreement for that. The question of what is a $1,500 a month mortgage? That's a $300,000 house with $60,000 down on a 30-year loan at about 4%. That is not affordable housing. I don't know too many people who are staying out of the current 30-degree temperatures outside who happen to have a spare $60,000 in their pocket to go buy a house. We have to, and I would urge the leadership of the commission, we have to get more specific about what is affordable. Otherwise, it's a dead horse in the middle of the room that we just keep walking around and saying we're talking about something that's affordable. Even auxiliary building units, AARP says the average unit on those costs between $50,000 and $100,000. So again, is that affordable? Unless we put some structure around this, we'll talk a lot and we'll come up with a lot of design standards, but we won't have something that when the public reads it in the paper, they'll say that's affordable housing. So we absolutely have to get in more agreement, more specificity about that. I also want to agree with Ryan and Todd on the design standards. Love the concept, but I got to go along with the gentleman who just said it's a real slippery slope because we get, I lived in Las Vegas, I lived in San Diego, I lived in the Central Valley of California, where everything ended up looking exactly the same because they were just, these were the design standards and they just got stamped out, as was mentioned earlier. On the issue of alleys, this feels like something that needs some sort of study to understand what the options are on this. I get completely that if somebody is trying to back their car out into an alley and there's 2 feet of snow there, they're probably not going to be going anywhere, particularly if they're my wife. So somewhere along the line, we've got to do, we've got to determine, what are the, assuming there isn't any, what are the alley design requirements? Last point, this issue about trees, should it be a recommended thing or so on? I guess because I'm on the Urban Forestry Committee and I'm also on the Board of Directors of the Lands Council, I'm big on trees. And Spokane, you can get as many trees as you want for basically next to nothing, depending on whether you're going to talk to the tree folks over at the city or whether you're going to contact us at the Lands Council. The value of one house, one tree can't really be argued. If we were going to require one thing in their 250 square feet of front yard, requiring some sort of tree to help cool and beautify Spokane, I think that's a good thing. That's all I had.
Thank you, Chris. Craig?
Well, I'm going to be really quick, just simply because everybody's done such a good job of talking with some great detail, and I really appreciate it. My biggest concern here, and this has already been echoed, is affordability. How do we get housing options that are available for everyone? While I think design standards are great in concept, I do get concerned that every time we put an additional requirement in place, we potentially make that housing more expensive to develop. And so that's my concern. I don't know how, I don't have a great answer for that, but I don't want to have, the only place that's affordable is a 60-unit apartment building. And even that would have to be subsidized. So I want people to be able to live in our single family neighborhoods and even at our lower income levels. And I'm not sure if some of these design standards allow us to get there. So thanks.
Thanks, Craig.
President, is it okay if I
Of course, please.
cut in here? I want to make sure that it's clear we're going to need to come back with some changes here and address some of what's come up. I want to make sure we come away in the remaining 5 minutes we have with some actionable items for us to bring back to you in the form of either more information or changes to what's been proposed. So I'm just hoping we can take the last few minutes and maybe nail down some of those questions.
Yeah. Greg, were you gonna offer something there?
Oh yeah, Todd, since you're on the State Building Code Council, can you roll back some of our energy code requirements? That will reduce our housing costs too. So, thanks.
It's a little sensitive right now as State Building Code Council is getting sued.
That was I just forgot to put my hand down, but I figured I'd take my shot. So,
thank you. Okay, maybe that's a good suggestion, Spencer. So a couple of things that I think we're missing. Council President is clearly asking about density requirements and should density be increased to accommodate some of these. And I think that was mentioned and it was presented, makers, thank you, in a previous conversation. So everyone can understand, like, when do we bump up against a density, when do we above 10? I think my question on that is two parts. Are there other examples, precedents on how cities are not dealing with density, not using density at the parcel level, right? Not at the project level. It's an open question. I really don't know the answer. I know some cities are eliminating density and using just dimensional standards, FAR. Can we do that? I know we have this other pathway, Nate, right? You've taught us we put in place for pocket residential and cottage housing and so forth, right? To look at the parent lot and so forth. The second part is, I think makers, sorry, I'm calling you makers, not by your names, just out of laziness. You mentioned before that maybe this was an opinion, maybe it was just a observation, that it's a little excessive in our development code that we have FAR and building coverage and dimensional standards and so forth, density, right? Is that correct? Did I remember that?
Yeah, often there are a lot of layers there. So, but I think FAR is a pretty good tool. Building coverage is one that generally moving away from and doing impervious area instead, but having all the different standards that you have could be construed as excessive. But when we, looked at the details, there's a lot of complications to, changing over to impervious area. And some communities, because we think impervious area is going to be covered by the stormwater standards, we've even gotten rid of that. So we kind of look at all the sets of regulations and see with what is, what do we really need? If we take this away, what's going to happen? And we heard about, for instance, ADUs, do we even need a max or this and that? And I know we'll talk about that next time, because we've been kind of exploring, modeling what would happen if we change this and change that. Sure, there's a lot of different layers there.
Okay.
I think what you have before is, right now, our suggestion. Maybe there's other things later in the phase down the road. Maybe you get rid of building coverage and you do have impervious area, but I don't think we're ready to go there yet, based on what we have now and the fact that you're in a hurry also to get these things done. So given that, that's why we propose what we have.
Okay. So that's my question. Density bonus structure, like Ellensburg versus FAR bonus structure, and how that all ties in. And
yeah, many communities, Vancouver or Clark County, in their mixed and multifamily areas, we got rid of density limits, and we just had, here's the housing types that are allowed, here's your height limit, and here's the design standards. So we didn't have a density limit. So that's definitely been done. So the comprehensive plan is where you start running up against some complications with some of that in the environmental analysis.
Thank you. Anyone else want to prioritize anything?
I have one question. With these design standards, where they've been in place, have there been any studies that indicate whether or not design standards such as this depress the development of new housing and whether or not it impacts affordability?
You know, it's so all over the place because all design standards are just completely different, and it's impossible to isolate that. Just like, you know, we've been asked by Tacoma, we had an architect working with us and help explain the cost implications of each design standard, not just as a whole, but each one. But it's, you know, it's difficult because their explanation was, well, a lot of these are being integrated by the market now. So there was a way to look at it that way, but it's so, each one of them is different. And how do you isolate just the one issue? It's very challenging, and it would be, it'd be a crazy scope of work if you were ever asked a consultant to try to do that, just because it's so variable. I would say that there's some cities that had certain requirements are really, you know, one city had an excessive open space requirement, and you ended up with really bad open space design. It was like too big. It's like a helipad, for instance.
Well, I wonder if like the home builders associations or, you know, BIA have done any sort of studies on it. I know obviously those would be maybe a little bit directional as far as their study goes, but it might be informative as well.
Yeah, we work with a lot of economists, and you know, we're working with one in particular out of Portland, and they've told us a lot about like inclusionary housing, and the stuff that they've done up there has stifled affordability actually because it's reduced the number of units being built. But they didn't have any stats really. That was just kind of their feeling on it, but real data to back that up is a little more harder to come by.
Okay.
It'd be
Well,
good,
thank you.
good to see. It'd be great to see that.
Okay. Well, anyone else? Chris, did you want to just say that out loud?
Sure. There's an interesting and very vibrant side discussion going on over in the chat. And it seems that the commission is discussing this issue of affordability. As a business analyst, I spend a lot of time with my clients just trying to get them to define what the question is they want me to solve. What is the problem we're trying to solve specifically? What did you mean by that specific word? And so the conversation we've been having on the side here, while listening to everybody, of course, is on this issue of affordability. And so the question is, are we making sure when we're having these discussions, which are expensive discussions to have based on time, especially with staff and so on and so forth, we need to make sure that the commission is doubly sure of exactly what the problem statement is we're solving, because while some of us were thinking affordable housing today, other people, and I'm not saying anything pejorative about this, other people were saying, for example, Jesse, and please correct me when I go wrong, Jesse. Jesse was thinking middle housing, not you know, lower income and affordable housing. So in the time that we have, when we have all this brain trust together, making sure that we have a clear definition of exactly what problem we're trying to solve will take what I think is some really good input and make sure it's focused on the problem at hand.
Okay, good comment, Chris. Thanks. Okay, anyone else?
I just want to I haven't been following the chat, so I appreciate your stating that. I am, when I'm talking about affordability, I am talking about more ownership opportunities, and not necessarily a low-income subsidized housing. I'm looking at how can we increase our housing stock such that there is more opportunity to build equity for private owners, rather than them being stuck in a cycle of renting for their entire life, or living in a subsidized environment their entire life. So yes, there's a degree of affordability in there, but it also is kind of improving to me, those opportunities for people. I don't know if that helps clarify the position.
I think you just made my case for me, Greg. But
yay, I did something. Woohoo.
I will say that I do appreciate that it seems there's an effort to bring together the typologies of attached housing and duplex. So that if we're thinking of how we design and so forth, that clearly that's there, and I can start to see that expand into triplexes and so forth in the future. So thank you.
Todd, if I can just add one parting note to the commission. We heard a lot of comments about the design standards and some concern about cost. What I would suggest is, if I know we don't have time today, but if there's a follow-up and you have a chance to look at some of those details, if there's some specific suggestions, we heard some specific things and certainly on the list, but if there are additional options that should be added to the list, or if there are certain things that don't belong on the list, those things would be really good to know. In other projects I've had, they've been made better because we got really specific suggestions. We should add these 2 specific items. Staff wants these to be clear and measurable, and so that's why we wanted to keep them minimal. I did suggest on a number of things to make them presumptive rather than requirement, but there was some pushback from staff to try to make sure that they were administrable by them. So I could respect that, but just wanted to give you some suggestions and also insight to kind of the process, at least to try to address some of the issues we're facing.
No, great comments, and appreciate everything you're doing. And Nate, Amanda, awesome again. So these are big topics. Okay, is that good? Dean, thank you for being flexible. By the way, Dean, we know you have a lot to say on this subject matter, so please weigh in.
No, you guys, I just added that thing just because I thought someone had asked that question. I just wanted to provide a citation of state code, how the state defines it.
So, but Dean, related to this real quick before you start.
Sure.
Does this go to DRB? This is exactly, a few years ago when we tried to have that subcommittee to address this kind of disconnect between the Plan Commission and the DRB, right?
The time that a project would go to design review, and whether that it's a minor departure, which would be done by urban design staff.
I'm sorry, or I'm specifically asking, is this conversation happening at DRB?
Yeah.
For review before it? Okay. No. And that concerns me, because that's exactly what we tried to address a couple of years ago in the subcommittee, right?
Actually, it's mentioned in my presentation.
Oh, okay. Well, then let me step aside. Okay, so thank you, makers, and everyone else. Go ahead, Dean, please.
Okay. Let's see here. I want to make sure that you all can see my screen. Can you do that? Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we're seeing the agenda. Oh, there we go. Now it's the presenter view.
Okay. So this is the new design guidelines. This is the final workshop for the new design guidelines and the associated design code revisions or the code revisions. What I wanted to do is to address quickly for some of the new members on the Plan Commission, what is design review? And by association, what is the Design Review Board? The Design Review Board is the only citizen body in the city of Spokane that actually evaluates development projects, and their sole purpose is to make a determination and recommendations on, excuse me? Right here? Upper left? Okay. How is that? Is that better? Here, I guess.
That's good.
Okay. So it is the one citizen body that actually reviews development projects, and its sole purpose is to evaluate the quality of a design. So if you were wondering who makes the call on whether one particular design is superior than another particular design, you have an entire board that does that. That's the Design Review Board. Now, this is under Title IV. These are the rules that govern design review, and I put in bold that their task is to ensure that the reviews are done consistent with adopted design guidelines. And that's what brought us to this particular thing, because right now the design standard or the design guidelines that we have are just for the downtown projects and for mini storage projects that are across the street from residential. What we do not have are public projects, skywalks, citywide for all other projects that might be subject to design review, and possibly PUDs. That was one of the tasks that we assigned our consultant. And in addition, the code revisions necessary to support those guidelines and what we're calling the phase 2 recommendations. And what do I mean by phase 2? This project started back in the fourth quarter of 2019, and we retained a consultant to help us look at our comparison cities, to evaluate our design review process, look at the comparison cities of Seattle, Portland, and Boise, because they have also statutory design review. And at the end of that phase 1, after that first series of public workshops and the beginnings of the interviews, they conducted a kind of a status of their investigation, which was Memo 1. And then phase 2, they concluded interviews with key stakeholders. They did more discovery, looking at the individual cities, digging into their ordinances, looking deeper into our ordinances, and working more closely with staff and holding a series of city workshops. They created memo number 2, which provided an outline or guideline for what those design guidelines ought to look like and what might need to be some associated code improvements to inject clarity and transparency into the design review process. And we are currently in phase 3, where we are drafting these guidelines and the code revisions and going into the adoption of the guidelines and the code. So just kind of give you a hint of the number of times that this has been touched by different city groups and stakeholders and technical teams. I kind of highlighted where we're at right now. We're March 2022. We're in the final workshop on the design guidelines and code revisions for the Plan Commission. We are looking to go before the Urban Experience Committee for City Council on April 11th, and we'll be back for you for the recommendation hearing on April 13th, 2 days later. And the idea is that we would then take it to City Council for adoption at the end of April or beginning of May, and those would go into effect in June. And what were some of the summary of the Memo 1 findings? That design review, for it to be effective, it has to have effective tools. So there are those tools that make up the design review system. Do they communicate the city's vision for design? And these tools should include design guidelines and design standards that work together as a suite of complete and coordinated regulatory tools. And they working together, the tools and processes should support the city of Spokane in implementing its vision. Now, the 4 characteristics of effective tools are that they are clear and fair. They identify a clear and fair process, that it engages the community, that it results in consistently positive outcomes, and most importantly, that it is right-sized for the city of Spokane. Under the kind of high-level recommendations coming out of the Memo 2, which is when the consultant was wrapping up their work and they were made specific recommendations about the guidelines. They said that we needed to actually revise the current set of guidelines, the most robust set of guidelines that we have. We started as kind of a default beginning point. Those are the ones for the downtown. But we would actually create a category called urban design, that we would then still have the same public amenities, pedestrian environment, architectural expression, access and screening, just as we have in the current set. But then we would also add the area of influence for each category. So urban design looks at the city, the region, the neighborhood, the district. Public amenities and pedestrian environments look both at the public realm and the site. Architectural expression and access and screening look at the building and the structure, but access and screening also looks at the edge of a site. In terms of code amendments to import more clarity and transparency into the design review process, for design guidelines themselves, they're recommending adopting the public projects and structures guidelines, skywalks citywide, and then link all design guidelines to the correct project types. This would include not just the 3 new ones, but also the downtown and the mini storage facilities. Actually, create a new standard, a new chapter within the land use standards for skywalks. If you look at the only place in the entire municipal code that mentions skywalks it's a melange of criteria and phrases and clauses that are buried in Title 12, which are rules for governing the public rights of way. Their recommendation was leave all of the air rights agreement contract language in Title 12 where it belongs, because that deals with right-of-way encroachments and the terms of what those agreements would have to be, arbitration, etc. But then take the standards, the development standards and the design standards for skywalks, and import them into the Unified Development Code, into the land use standards, into Title 17C. And then for clarity and transparency, make sure we did a pass through the code to make sure that we were eliminating the use of outdated terms, link the actual design guidelines to the Spokane Municipal Code so that when you look at projects that are subject to design review, there's an actual link in the online code that will allow you to take you to the booklets that you're seeing, so that everybody that's looking at the code actually sees what those guidelines are. Right now, the current process is, you just see that there's something, then you have to call somebody, and then we send you a copy of it. We also clarify the design departure eligibility. The code clearly states that any design standard that is written in an RPC format, and those are those tiers of obligations for design standards, that those are eligible for design departure. Those are the things that would trigger design review, whether that's done by staff, if it's a minor design departure, or if it's done by the design review board for a standard review. And then we would require that skywalk applications actually conform to the design review recommendations, and that we add a requirement that they have a package that shows the design and the location for their wayfinding signage, which we have, but we don't really enforce it very well. Not the fault of applicants. It's a convoluted process. And then we also wanted to make sure that projects that are subject to design review actually conform with the remainder of the Spokane Municipal Code. And I want to talk about this a little bit more. This was the deletion of the shoreline conditional use permits, and then plan unit development design review at the preliminary plat stage of design of PUDs. And then we also want to make sure that in the application requirements and the decision criteria that we point back to the new chapters for skywalks. Now, for those, if you look at the Unified Development Code, there are 2 potential locations where you would see a requirement to trigger design review. One would be in the land use standards. That would be specific to a particular project type or a zone. The other would be in the design review criteria in 17G. In either one of those locations, you might see a trigger. What we are doing is we're removing the need for design review for shoreline conditional use permits because we removed the design review criteria in the shoreline code last year, specifically because recommendations going back to 2016 wanted to remove design review from SCUPs. And the reason we do that is we have very high design standards already for shoreline conditional use permits, and that was sufficient. And then for plan unit developments, if you go all the way back in the Wayback Machine to 2006, you can see that the code changes and the design review code changes in 2006 eliminated the need for design review. They actually make no mention of the need for design review for planned unit developments. But the reason we're doing them now is if you look deep into the decision criteria for PUDs, there's a clause that references the design review committee. That tells you how old that clause is. We haven't had a design review committee since 2010. And that's the thing that has dragged design review for PUDs at the preliminary plat stage to come before the design review board. So the consultant recommended that those be deleted from the code, and it also conforms with their analysis of the state of the practice assessments for the comparison cities of Seattle, Portland, and Boise. They all have either directly by name plan unit developments or versions of those development types. Usually I think Portland calls them master planned developments. None of those communities require those more intense residential development applications to go through design review. They simply write the design standards into the code for those particular project types. And in terms of addressing the readability, you can look at the guidelines. We spent a fair amount of time trying to look at the guidelines from the perspective of a potential reader that's coming to these projects, to this process fresh. So there's quite a bit of kind of referencing material for how to use the booklets and what do each page section mean. And then we were color coding the sections to make sure that people aren't confusing the sustainability standards that you might see in urban design to the sustainability standards that are in for parking or for streetscape improvements. And then we added a glossary of frequently used urban design terms that urban design staff would be using in their staff reports, or what the members of the design review board would be using in their advisory actions or their final recommendations to the action approving authorities. And I won't go into depth of what all the specific guidelines, but you can see the public projects and structures design guidelines found on pages 79 through 119 in your agenda. And then for skywalks, you can see those on pages 120 through 152 in your agenda. And then for citywide design guidelines, those would be found on pages 153 to 194 in the agenda. Now I go into the specific portions of the ordinances. The first is those strictly related to design guidelines. That's found on pages 41 through 46. This formally adopts the design guidelines for public projects and structures, skywalks, and citywide. It adds the links to all those design guidelines to the online code, not just for those 3 new ones, but for the existing downtown and the mini storage facility guidelines. It deletes the shoreline conditional use permits from design review, as mentioned before. It refers to citywide design guidelines for design deviations in centers and corridor zones. It clarifies that the Plan Commission may request the design review board's advice on planning studies. It also refers to citywide design guidelines for developments that may require design review as required elsewhere in the code. That would be one of the conditions where you might not see a project type specifically called out in the design review code, but it's mentioned within the land use codes. Then the second one is the ordinance for skywalks. Those are found on pages, sounds like I'm hearing somebody's phone ringing. They're probably telling me I'm out of time. So here's the ordinance for skywalks found on pages 47 through 60. This basically does, as I had explained before, it moves all of those design criteria for skywalks over public rights of way out of Title 12, Chapter 2, Article 3, and creates a new chapter in the land use standards. And that would be titled SMC 17C 255. It adds that new chapter. It also adds sections on the development standards, which are the street clearances. It also has a graphic, circulation, street access, glazing, drainage. The development standards are the things that are not eligible for departure. So those are fixed. You just have to conform with those. The design, it also adds a design standards administration and a design standards implementation section, just like you find in other sections of the land use standards code. It also adds sections for the individual design standards. Those are the things that are written in the RPC format. So those are windows, enclosure, articulation, angulation, and slope with graphics and dimensions. Those are the ones that any applicant can request a departure. And the difference between skywalks and centers and corridors from any other land use category is a departure or a deviation in skywalks or centers and corridors does not require a separate land use application. That can be done just through the normal design review process. Any other project type under any other code, there's a separate land use application, a design departure application. That's not required for skywalks, nor is it required for design deviations in centers and corridors. And then under the ordinance for design review clarity and transportation found on pages 61 through 77, this amends the outdated terms under the fee portion of Title 8. It also clarifies which design standards are eligible for design departures. Essentially, it lists all the ones that are written in an RPC format, but then it also has weasel language. It's a catch-all phrase, or any other design standard written in an RPC format. It adds the Skywalk application requirements referring to design review recommendations and location and design for public wayfinding signage. It deletes references to a design review committee, which was a finding that was in the decision criteria for PUDs that was tied to the preliminary plat stage evaluation. It clarifies that a Skywalk's air rights use must conform to Title 12, Chapter 2, Article 3, and it clarifies that the Skywalk development conforms to the standards found in the new Chapter 17C 255 Skywalks. And whew, that was it. I stand for questions.
Thank you, Dean. Commissioners? Dean, I really, well, first of all, it's beautiful layout, all of it. You know. But thank you for the summary. I really like the category architectural expression. Just to note on our previous topics, I think in 2022 it'd be ideal if we could start moving away from neighborhood character and being consistent with terms like architectural expression and things like that, that we are quality of the built environment. But that's just aside. Dean, what I think I'm wrapping my head around this, but I'm thinking of the historic preservation review. That's always confused me why we have a separate process for that overlay. Are there other examples like that that and others could benefit by bringing into this structure for new construction? I understand the purpose of historic preservation. That's not my point. For new construction.
Yeah. Well, we work really closely with Megan Duvall, the Historic Preservation Officer, and the Landmarks Commission. In fact, there's a number of circumstances where we would have new buildings that are in a historic district or attached to an historic building listed on the registry. And we usually invite members of the Landmarks Commission in to sit in as guests of the Design Review Board and processes like that. If you look at the Parkview Apartments, the 7-story mixed-use building across the street from Brick West Brewery. That was a situation where we brought 2 members of the Landmarks Commission in. They sat in, they engaged in discussions. They just didn't vote on the final recommendations, but they were deferred to when it came to questions regarding historicity. So, yeah.
But that's not how the overlay is written. They do the design review on new construction, right? I don't want to dig down on this too deep, but I'm starting to understand the structure you're proposing, and it makes sense.
Yeah. Well, it says that they are subject to, for new construction within an existing historic district on a vacant site, they would be subject to conditional use permit from the from the Landmarks Commission. But that doesn't negate design review. What they do is they would identify, from my perspective, what they would do is identify what are the historical influencing characters that would inform that may inform a particular design on a particular site. That then gets handed off to the design review board. There is if you look at the design standards, we have a placemaking requirement for one of the design guidelines is placemaking, and it makes reference to if there is historic elements, a project is expected, a design is expected to respond to those. That doesn't mean a rote recreation of an historic building, but actually just respects it. So if you look at the Riverside apartments that are being built on Riverside and Brown, they're within a historic district or adjacent to an historic district, and how they're responding to the National Hotel, which is on the registry that's just across the street. They're making accommodations for the not yet adopted cultural trail, which was to install a frame that would actually kind of a large pedestrian frame that kind of frames the view of the hotel, and that's in their front plaza. So that's one of the ways in which they were able to do that. And in terms of the actual horizontal articulation of that building, it has that same characteristic, though it's expressed in a very contemporary form.
Thank you. Greg?
Yeah, thank you, Dean. I appreciate also your willingness to compress your presentation a bit.
I'm oxygen deprived. So
one question I have is, as reading through this, was I know on your technical working group, you have several members of AIA Spokane that participated. Has there been a broader outreach?
Oh, yes.
To the architects as far as their comments with regards to this? Because I know we've had, we've had numerous projects that have passed through design review, and sometimes they can walk away a little bit frustrated, and so.
Yeah. We were, for the past 2 years, we've been really working very closely with not only, actually it's for the first time, I reached out to the professional associations, the American Planning Association, WASLA, the Washington American Society of Landscape Architects, and AIA Spokane, to pull them into the crafting and the review of this particular sets of guidelines, because often they're the consultants on the development teams. But we also worked very, very closely with Greg Forsyth with the Spokane School District, because they're one of the big institutional projects that go through design review. We worked very closely with the libraries, and then we had, I think, very good constructive conversations with both the National Home Builders Association, not necessarily about this, but they may have, in a mixed use building, they may have some residential units that would normally trigger design review just because of their size or their location. But also with the community assembly. I think we made a couple of presentations to community assembly, and we presented to the community assembly land use committee. So we've been doing as much as we can, not with just our the usual suspects for design review applications, but also groups and interest groups that may be subject to the final recommendations that would come out of design review.
Great. Well, I appreciate that, and thanks for adding Plinth to the.
Plinth. I had to put that in there because Greg asked, "What the hell is a plinth?" So I figured, well, I better write that in the glossary. So.
Thanks.
Yep.
Anyone else? Chris, yeah, go ahead.
Dean, thank you, great presentation. When you were following up on the comment you just made, when you were talking to those professional organizations, was their input casual or official?
Official. They were members of our steering committee.
And so
They
go ahead.
Yeah, like for instance, a good example is the involvement of the AIA. So we worked with the then president of the local chapter of the AIA. They appointed a standing committee that was led by Dana Harbaugh, who was a principal with NAC Architecture, and actually used to has served as the chair for the design review board in the past, going back to the early to mid 2000s. And then he brought in a whole group of other architects from other firms to actually look through and comb through the language and to provide specific comments and resources back. We got similar responses from the WASLA, the landscape architects, and from the school district. So we had some pretty good feedback. If I had another year, I'm sure I could have another year's worth of groups to be involved, but I don't know if it would result in much further refinement of what we have.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
Go ahead, Ryan, please.
I just wanted to note that, after Todd brought it up right before Dean started, I found the section that adds the language that the design departures does add in residential zone design standards. Of course, not that it means, it still costs a couple $1,000s you have to put in for a whole revision. So it doesn't mean we shouldn't have the discussion about design standards anyway.
Yeah.
I am concerned just on my, because I've done a lot of technical writing, what if it's not cross-referenced in the section in which it also applies to in the design standards, it makes it very difficult for people to know that there is an option for a review.
Yes.
If it's not also mentioned in all of these other chapters that it could be applied to.
Yeah, that's why under the design standards administration that you find it's usually the beginning of it's the 500. It's a 500 series within each zone. It clearly talks about those standards which are eligible for design departures. And that's why we wanted to pair that. And this was one of those clarity and transparency moves, was to make sure that we embedded that in the actual project subject to design reviews, that we were creating that cross-reference, because you're right. One of the things that we found out, even I'm gonna name names, Dana, who chairs the AIA, who served as our AIA point person and had chaired the design review board. Well, it was the design review committee then, so he wasn't under the current process. But he also, as a principal architect in the Spokane area, was not completely sure how design departures worked. And for a term that has been used by the Plan Commission before, Todd has used it, performance-based coding. As opposed to prescriptive-based. The closest that the city has to performance-based coding are the design standards, because you can propose an alternative. You can look at the standard, and the standards are written in two formats. There's the purpose statement. This is why we're doing it. And then there's the implementation criteria. And an applicant could come in and say, you know what, I want to propose an alternative, which means they don't have to do any of the implementation criteria. All they have to demonstrate to the design review board or urban design staff, if it's a staff level review, is that they still met the purpose. And if they're asking for a departure from a R, which is the highest tier obligation, then their alternative has to be superior in design quality. That's why it's so important that we have the design guidelines, because that's the metric for what tells you qualifies for superior design quality. Yeah, they're not shooting in the dark. They're just not making it up. But if it is a P design guideline or a design standard, design criteria, then the performance-based alternative only needs to be equal to the quality of what would have been achieved if they had just followed the implementation criteria. So
So what you're saying is the purpose statement is actually really important
the
because
purpose, yes, yeah,
because that's what is the first thing that's going to be looked at if there's any deviation.
yeah. We have talked. I started just this last summer as a parallel track to this. I don't want to go too far afield, but looking at the actual design standards that currently exist across all zones. We have had, and the reason I bring it up is it was brought up repeatedly in our analysis when we were doing these design guidelines. There were folks that were mentioning things like the base middle top design or the base top design standard. Written right into the purpose statement is buildings are better if they have bases and tops. Therefore, and then the implementation criteria. So if you're going to ask for a departure, you still have to prove that it meets the purpose statement. But if the base top is part of the purpose statement, then you've run into a logical error. And so those are the types of things that we want to address. But let's make sure that we have these guidelines in place first, and make sure that we've gotten addressed some of these other kind of higher target clarity, transparency issues taken care of.
Real quick, can this also bring us closer to pre-approval of certain typologies? The repeatable,
Oh, yes. Actually, I shouldn't tell you this. We actually already created drafts for the downtown and for the mini storage, because those are those two other project types that are subject to design review. And, the mini storage ones were adopted back in the year 2000, so they're 22 years old. The ones in downtown were based off of the 2008 Fast Forward Downtown Plan. Well, we have the new updated downtown plan. So we need to update those, but we're going to use the exact same format. So it'll be intelligible across the whole thing. They're just going to be different color coded. So you'll know right from the front page which project type you're dealing with. And the code revisions add the links to the new guidelines and links to the existing downtown design guidelines and mini storage, so that when we do revise those, we don't have to go back and change that version of the code. It's already changed. So all we'll have to do is have that discussion about, are those criteria correct? And are those images that we're using correct? And then that makes it much easier.
Great. Okay, anyone else?
I think I've successfully put Michael to sleep. He's leaning back in his chair. There he is.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Dean, and everyone who's worked on this. Congratulations.
Yep, thank you. Thanks, everybody. And look forward to seeing you on April 13th. If you have any comments or questions, just feel free to shoot them to me. Both Taylor and I are working on these things every day. So
awesome.
Thanks
Dean.
much.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone. Anything else for the good of the order? Okay. If not, we will adjourn. Thank you.
See y'all later.
Good night.
Good night.
Right.
Good night.